Ta-da! All right, everybody.
Yay!
It's setting up my meeting. Hold on. It's like, this is the whole love technology. This takes forever.
Oh, Zoom, you will work. Now I'm trying to hypnotize Zoom.
Okay. Okay. So welcome everybody to Transformation Tuesday, brought to you by Yonkers Public Library. This is a discussion program about the importance of different aspects of self-care during challenging times. And tonight we are going to be led by David from Strong by Lee. And we have a very important topic of food. So food for thought, food for body, all about eating and snacking and meal composition and about when to eat, how to eat, what to eat. So David, please take us on our food journey tonight.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'll be able to take anyone on a journey tonight, but I'm going to do my best to keep it interesting and informative and educational and highly valuable. Thank you very much, everyone. This is my second time doing the solo, well, actually the first time doing the solo Transformation Tuesday. Last week, Andrea was on, but I think I did the bulk of the talking. So I'm David Lee. For people who have never interacted with me before, I run a solo company called Strong by Lee, where I'm a personal trainer and a registered dietitian, and my specialty is helping my clients improve their body, their confidence, and their resilience through personalized fitness, nutrition, and accountability coaching. I do one-on-one training, I do small group training, and I also do remote training. And I've been doing a lot more remote training because of what's going on right now with the pandemic and the shutdown, but I'm hoping that soon we will transition out of that and I'll be able to do what I consider my bread and butter, the one-on-ones and the in-person, because I think that's what I enjoy doing the best. Today, we're going to talk about food, but we're going to address a couple of specific things. And I think Z and I spoke about one thing that people might be interested in. And of course, we're going to go through the agenda, break down the structure of this talk, is meal timing and snacking. So a couple of different things. So meal timing, snacking, meaning how many meals should we eat per day? Does meal frequency and how many meals we eat per day actually even matter in the grand scheme of things? What are some good snacks? And also, what is a suitable meal breakdown? And the way that I like to call that meal composition in terms of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. We're going to try to go through the basic stuff first, because I want to make sure that we cover the foundation before we start talking about the practical applications. In the chat window, I have a couple of questions that I want to kind of tack off during this discussion. And throughout the discussion, I think the discussion is slotted for 30 minutes, but I'm going to try to take a break every 8 minutes and see if anyone has any questions that are pertinent to what we were talking about beforehand, and see if I can address them. So rather than having a big Q&A at the end, we're going to try to have like little intermissions throughout the discussion, so no Q&As get lost and things like that. So I want to see if we can address some questions a little bit, address relevant questions real time. So before we get started, do we have anything that anyone is interested or curious in from the get-go that might be pertinent to what we're talking about, like meal timing, meal frequency, snacking, things of that nature, or any questions that might be on the side in the chat window? Maybe give 10, 15 seconds to see if somebody's willing to go into the chat, type a question. And if not, we're going to rock and roll. All right. So while just in case somebody's going to type in the question again, we're just going to go rock and roll. And then if I see any questions, then we'll address it as we go. But the first thing we're going to talk about is snacking. And I'm assuming that many people here, a vast majority of people, are interested in losing weight. They're losing weight, getting healthier. Those are the two main things that a lot of these questions or a lot of these Transformation Tuesdays with me will be addressing. So snacking is the first one on the docket. Should we snack? Is snacking healthy? And if you do snack, how should you do it? This is actually controversial. A lot of people believe that snacking is healthy, but then there are also other people who believe snacking isn't healthy. And so I want to preclude our whole conversation with the idea that the best available information and data that we have in research is often conflicting. You'll have a research study that comes out that might validate and support everything, all the suggestions that I'm going to tell you today. But then there might be another study that has a different study design that might refute that premise. So what we have to be very aware of is just because I give a suggestion or say that, oh, snacking might not be good for you, doesn't necessarily mean it won't be. Because what we do is you take the best available data and the evidence that we have and then try to apply it to your specific situation. Because I think, you take that research and then you try to translate it into your particular situation to see if it's going to work. Because I think that way you'll get the best possible results and you'll be able to rule out through the process of elimination if something is going to be effective for you or not. With that out of the way, so snacking can be effective, but when I talk to people who want to lose weight or they want to get healthier, I instead try to get people to go on 3 to 4 square meals per day. One, because I find when I put people on square meals per day, it's a little bit easier logistically. So rather than eating 5, 6 meals per day where you're snacking or you're grazing, it's much better from a logistical and a scheduling standpoint to eat 4 square meals per day. It's a lot easier on meal prep if people like to meal prep. It's a lot easier on food choices because if you're going to eat 5 to 6 meals per day, you might find yourself trying to eat something different every single meal. And also the meals themselves are substantial enough where if you eat one large meal, it might be able to hold you over for 4 or 5 hours, as opposed to a small meal that you'll get hungry about an hour and a half to 2 hours later with. So from a logistical standpoint, I find 3 to 4 square meals much better from a weight loss and health perspective, especially if you're not working out regularly, if you're not highly active, and if you don't already have a lot of muscle, meaning that you're not a physique competitor, you're not a really high level or competing athlete. So people whose snacking would work well for are those people who are really active or involved in sports in some way. And also people who just like eating frequently. I know that there are people who do like eating frequently. I don't meet them very often. More often, I find people's like, just simplify, Dave. If I can eat 3 meals per day, that'll be fantastic. Put me on a schedule where I don't have to think about eating so much because I'm busy. I work. I might have a family. I have kids. I go to school. I need something simple. 3 to 4 square meals. This is how you eat. Spread them out at these times every 3, 4, 5 hours, and most people will be golden. The reason snacking might not be beneficial for some people is whenever you eat, your body has to digest and absorb the food. As it's digesting and absorbing the food, it shuts down the fat loss process because the body is not really good at multitasking. When it has food coming in, it's going to shut down the fat loss process and go into what's called, it's going to place a priority in either metabolizing and burning off that food for energy or storing it. If you're a person who you're constantly eating, your body will most likely store the food, especially if you're inactive. This is why I said for people who are really active, the snacking can be good because their body's constantly on the move. The metabolism is constantly revving. But if you're not moving a lot, the body will preferentially use your stored fat as energy, which is why you want to keep that process of your body burning stored fat for as long as possible, which is why you want to have a long interval of not eating in between your meals. That way your body can burn off the store or have much higher time in that fat burning stage as possible. So that's one reason. Research also shows that people who eat frequently tend to have higher hunger ratings, meaning that they tend to get hungrier faster. And of course, this is much, much more prevalent for people who are active, which is why snacking, again, is really important for them. But for somebody who's not active, snacking actually leads to higher hunger scores. This might not apply to everybody. In my case, of my experience though, people who go to 3 to 4 square meals per day with substantial meals, if they're planning it properly and their meals are substantial, meaning they have a sufficient amount of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats in accordance with their goals, they want to lose weight or they want to get healthier, then their hunger management is much better than somebody who snacks. Any questions on snacking? So 3 to 4 square meals per day. snacking, and we're going to go through meal composition. What are some good snacks? We just wanted to kind of get the research out of the way first a little bit. All right, so meal composition. Meal composition basically means proteins, fats, carbohydrates. How are your meals structured in that way, the nutrients? So there are these proteins, fats, and carbohydrates are considered what are called macronutrients. Macro being big, and then nutrients being what your body uses for energy. It's called macro because whenever you eat these foods, they're measured in grams. For example, if you look on a nutrition label, you'll see that fats, total fats on the nutrition label is measured in grams, carbohydrates measured in grams, proteins measured in grams. But there's also another macronutrient that many people might not know is a macronutrient, and that is alcohol. Alcohol is considered a macronutrient because alcohol is measured in grams. And also the macronutrients provide energy. So proteins and carbohydrates, each gram, this might be a fun little math exercise for a lot of people, for those of us who are curious, each gram has 4 calories. So if you have 25 grams of carbohydrates or proteins, it'll give you 100 calories. Fats have more than double. 1 gram of fat has 9 calories. So 1 tablespoon of oil has 140 calories. Alcohol has 7 calories per gram. We're not really going to talk about alcohol, but in terms of meal composition, what is an ideal meal composition for somebody who wants to lose weight and get healthier? What I can tell you is many people do not meet their protein requirements. Proteins come from meats, flesh, and high protein dairy and vegetable products. Legumes are high in protein, but the problem with, so if anyone is a vegetarian or a vegan here, what vegetarians and vegans tend to have a difficult time with is hitting their protein needs through foods alone without supplementing and without eating foods that are also high in carbohydrates. The problem with vegetable sources of proteins, if you're not resorting to supplementation, is that they also tend to have high amounts of carbohydrates. A lot of people think, oh, black beans, cannellini beans, kidney beans, they're high in protein, so they're protein source, right? Not necessarily, because if you look at a certain food, beans, legumes do have protein. A cup of beans or half a cup of beans will have 8 grams of protein, which can be good. And we're going to put it into relative terms in just a little bit. But a half a cup of beans also has 30 grams of carbohydrates. So it actually has more calories coming from carbohydrates than it does protein. So it's actually considered a carbohydrate source and not a protein source, although it has protein. And when we're looking at protein sources, we're looking at chicken, we're looking at beef, we're looking at pork, we're looking at fish. Egg whites can count. Now, the whole egg has protein. The egg yolk has protein, but the egg yolk also has fat. So if we're looking for just straight protein sources, an egg white is good. Cottage cheese can also be good. Greek yogurt is also very good. And you have some protein supplements out there that are good. But when it comes to vegetables, you have seitan, you have legumes, you have peanut butter, you have peanuts, you have tofu. Those are the main vegetable sources of protein. And when I say many people aren't hitting their protein needs, the easiest way to determine how much protein you should eat when it comes to weight loss is take your current body weight. Take your current body weight and times it by 0.7. Let's say, for example, I am 200 pounds. 0.7 would mean that I need to, 0.7 would mean that I would need 140 grams of protein if I'm 200 pounds. That's the simplistic way to determine how much protein you should eat. I'm getting a little bit too scientific here because I know that this is something that's a little bit more personalized. But suffice it to say, I would say almost every single person I've ever met, they probably only meet 50% of their protein needs. And this is important because whenever I counsel people on nutrition, protein is the number one thing that I try to get people to increase. Number one, many people aren't eating enough protein. Number two, a lot of people don't know what protein foods are. And number three, when it comes to weight loss, protein is the most powerful nutrient because protein is the best nutrient in terms of managing your hunger. And it's called thermic effective food. So essentially the body has to work harder in order to break down foods that contain protein. And as a result, the body spends more time with the protein. Protein stay in your system, your circulation longer, takes longer for the body to metabolize the protein. As such, it stays full longer, which is why when you're looking for weight loss, protein is probably the number one food that you want to bring up. Proteins, vegetables, and water. Those are the three big things. Those are the three big things that we're looking at. Fats, if we can get if you're looking to lose weight and get healthier, feel better, fats just kind of fall in line with the protein. A lot of protein sources will have fats that are associated with them. Think about any beef, pork, chicken. A lot of them will have fats. Whole eggs, the egg yolk has fat. So a lot of times you don't even need to add fat. Fats can be problematic for some people because whenever we're cooking or when we go out to eat, we tend to add a lot of fat in terms of oils. Not everyone will add fat. Some people will be more mindful of the fat, but if somebody goes out to eat a lot, these restaurants tend to add a lot of fat into their meals because fat creates palatability. That palatability makes the food taste much better. It's imagine like trying to cook chicken breast without any oil versus cooking chicken breast with oil. I'm sure the taste difference will be much bigger. It'll be much more pronounced. So the fats we're going to allow fats to just kind of fall in line. Carbohydrates is probably one of the most problematic things for people because carbohydrates are usually more implicated when it comes to metabolic issues being diabetes and blood sugar control. So blood sugar control is generally the one thing that I look at when I work with people who just want to lose weight and get healthier. I mean, we're looking at everything really, but I'm looking at, well, how much sugar are you eating per day? And how much sugar somebody's eating per day is going to give me an idea of how much blood sugar control they have. Blood sugar control usually is associated with how healthy somebody feels, how much energy they have, how well they can sleep, and motivation and mood and emotions, because sugars and carbohydrates, I'm sure a lot of people know, have a very intimate relationship with the way we feel, which is why I think a lot of people, when they get stressed out, they tend to turn towards carbohydrates. Or some people might think that, I would say probably over 50% of people would turn to sweets, or they say they have a sweet tooth, right? So meal composition, number one thing that we're looking at, making sure that we're bringing up protein, we're having enough protein. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the chat or we'll address them as we go. We're bringing up proteins. We want a nice healthy portion. We're bringing up vegetables and we're letting the fats fall in naturally. We're not adding a bunch of fats. Like we're not adding like half an avocado. We're not adding a bunch of oil to our salads. We're not doing all those things. We can add a little bit, but a lot of times people have an issue bringing up their proteins. And a lot of times when we bring up the proteins, a lot of people don't find that they need a bunch of other stuff. And then of course, we're looking at sugars. How much sugar are we eating? How many carbohydrates are we eating throughout the day? The reason we're thinking about carbohydrates is carbohydrates are the preferred energy source for the brain and working muscle. Your brain needs about 130 grams of sugar in order to function optimally per day. But you don't need 130 grams of sugar from carbohydrates. Your body can create sugar from other sources. Your body can create sugar from proteins and fats in the event that you're not eating a lot of carbohydrates. So people who are on low carbohydrate diets, the body can still supply the brain with the 130 grams of sugar that it requires. And what's interesting is that if you are engaging in highly mentally demanding work, there's evidence showing that your brain might actually need 20 to 25% more sugar. For example, chess. I don't know if anyone here plays chess. I don't know if anyone here knows anyone who plays chess. But chess, even though you're sitting there and you're thinking, you're not really doing physical activity, the amount of exertion that's put out by your brain, some of these chess players are burning 3,000-4,000 calories during a multi-hour match because they're thinking, they're using their brain so much. And so in any normal circumstance, what they eat throughout the day in terms of sugar is not nearly enough to provide the amount of sugar the brain needs during a high mental output activity, which is why the body has designed other processes to convert fats and proteins into sugars. So that's what happens. So we don't really technically need carbohydrates. If you are highly active, you're very active, or you're engaged in very mentally demanding work, then you would probably need carbohydrates in your diet. Otherwise, you don't really need that much. You don't even, like carbohydrates are the only nutrient that you are not required to eat in order to survive. Proteins and fats, body requires them to survive. Carbohydrates, you can go without carbohydrates for the rest of your life and survive just fine. Is it optimal? Probably not, but you can. You're capable of doing it. All right, so let's take a break right there. Are we okay so far? Z, are we okay so far?
Yes, we had a question private chatted to me about why do we like carbohydrates so much then?
It's so carbohydrates, the sugars, as opposed to proteins and fats, because our brain needs sugar, the carbohydrates can act directly on the brain in terms of the way that it affects the neurotransmitters being serotonin and dopamine. Though serotonin and dopamine, they're the hormones implicated in feeling good or relieving stress, things like that. So dopamine, I'm sure many people have heard of dopamine. Dopamine is the reward hormone. Whenever you do something that's rewarding, let's say, I don't know, let's say on social media, you put up a post and you're getting a bunch of likes. Those likes will tend to activate the dopamine reward system. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's cool. And then you just keep doing those things. Serotonin gives you a nice little high. So for some people who have sweet tooth or they turn towards sugars when they're stressed out, their serotonin levels will go up when they start eating sugars. And their serotonin levels will go down when there's a depletion of sugar or they're not having enough sugar. So, which is why some antidepressants they're called SSRIs, or selective serotonin receptor inhibitors. They work on that neurotransmitter level. Sugars tend to work in very similar ways. And there's actually a lot of research, anecdotal research. They surveyed heroin and crack addicts and asked them, what do you think is harder to quit? Is it crack, heroin, or carbohydrates or sugars? They said sugars. But they said sugars not because sugar is more potent than heroin or crack, but because carbohydrates and sugars, accessibility is so ubiquitous. Crack and heroin, they're illegal. So you have to go through illegal channels in order to obtain them. But sugars, you can go across the street. I lived across the street from CVS. If my wife's like, hey, I want some cookies, all I got to do is take a 30-second walk across the street to get cookies. It's so easy to get sugar. So whenever we need a dopamine hit or we feel a little bit low and we're getting our serotonin levels are low, hit you up with some sugar and you'll feel much better. For a lot of people, a vast majority of people will have a sweet tooth. And also, from an evolutionary perspective, our bodies were designed to seek out sweet stuff because sweet stuff usually meant that it was edible. And fruits, I don't know if we have any gardeners here, but fruits, the main way that fruits germinate is by somebody picking the fruits from the tree, eating it, and then excreting the seed. And then wherever the seed gets excreted, that's where the new tree is going to grow. So our bodies were designed, evolutionary speaking, to seek out sweet stuff because we evolved in an ecosystem that worked in conjunction with plants. So plants needed a way to spread. Humans and animals were the perfect vehicle to spread them. So I know that wasn't really nutrition related, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and there's a follow-up. So serotonin, how can we get serotonin without eating? Is there a way?
So serotonin is a naturally occurring hormone. Research still doesn't know why some people are susceptible to lower serotonin levels, or why some people tend to have. There are people who tend to have more prevalent sweet tooth than somebody else. Research still doesn't know that. There's a lot of research showing that we have acquired a sweet tooth genetically. So if your parents or your grandparents, they tended to eat a lot of sweet stuff, they're saying that those taste buds have been acquired genetically. But serotonin is an absolutely essential hormone. If you have low serotonin levels, your brain can't function. If you have really high serotonin levels, your brain can't function. I mean, you're going to have mental issues either way. But the thing is, if you don't eat carbohydrates, your serotonin levels aren't going to fluctuate as widely. I mean, carbohydrates have the biggest impact on serotonin levels. But just because you don't eat carbohydrates that have an impact on serotonin doesn't necessarily mean that your serotonin levels are going to drop precipitously low. It just means that your serotonin levels aren't going to have as big of fluctuations. And that might be good for people who struggle with mood issues or mood disorders or mental issues. Did I answer your follow-up?
Yes, thank you so much, David.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions, or we good to continue? All right. Zia, am I okay? Am I getting a little bit too in depth or what?
Well, this is good. So let's keep it moving with the food and
Okay,
snacking and
gotcha. The next topic that I want to talk about is pertaining to snacking in the sense that it still looks at how many meals should we eat per day. And I want to talk about this because this is probably one of the more common questions that I receive as a personal trainer, especially in the last couple of years. And it's the topic of intermittent fasting. It's based fasting when people don't eat for certain periods of time. There are all sorts of renditions of intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting, if for people who don't know, is essentially when you cut out what's called a feeding window. So you don't eat for a certain amount of time, and then you eat all of your calories within a certain amount of time. For example, the most common one is called 16-8, meaning that you don't eat or drink anything that has calories. Water is fine, tea, non-sweetened tea, beverages are fine, but for 16 hours. So let's say, for example, my last bite of food is at 8 p.m. tonight. I will not eat until 12 p.m. noon the next day. I could drink water, I could drink tea, I could drink coffee that have no additives. And then from 12 to 8, I'm eating all of my calories. So that's called intermittent fasting. And it's been touted to be the magic pill for weight loss. And it has been shown to have extremely beneficial effects on metabolic syndrome. So people who have high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and diabetes and whatnot. So there are a lot of purported benefits to intermittent fasting. So what you can possibly find is, from a practical standpoint, somebody would probably eat 2 meals within that 8-hour window. That's what I found. My wife and I did intermittent fasting, a rendition of it. We didn't do the full 16 hours because my wife and I were highly active, but that's what I usually start people on. Now, a lot of people, what they'll find is that they do a form of fasting anyway, where you'll finish eating at 8, but then you won't eat until, I don't know, 8 a.m. the next morning. So you're fasting for 12 hours. A lot of people are going to fast for 12 hours. What intermittent fasting is proposing is that you extend that fasting window. And by extending that fasting window, you're going to lose weight. But you don't lose weight. Now, this is the one thing that I want to get out of the way. You don't lose weight because intermittent fasting imparts any special benefit. It's essential, but if you take away essentially 1 meal from your day, you're taking away calories that you could be eating. So if you extend your fasting window 4 additional hours, you're probably cutting out 1 or 2 meals. That could be 5, 6, 7, 800 calories that you're cutting out of your normal day. And that's going to lead to weight loss. So it's not that intermittent fasting has some special magical properties. It's because you are abiding by a certain schedule. You know that, okay, I'm eating from 12 to 8. I'm more likely to abide by it. It's the idea of the schedule and having a routine. Now, is intermittent fasting good for people? It could be good for a lot of people. If you have a metabolic condition, I highly recommend you either follow up with me or you talk to a doctor about intermittent fasting. If you're on medication, definitely, be careful. If you're pregnant, you want to be careful. And also, one thing, if you have mood disorders, like if you have depressive issues or you have severe anxiety, then you want to be careful with intermittent fasting, because what research is finding, in addition to the beneficial effects that it has on metabolism, it does engage your central nervous system, your brain. And if you do have neurotransmitter imbalances, it could exacerbate those things. Now, research doesn't know why. Research doesn't know exactly why, but there is a process called autophagy. And autophagy is a scientific term for recycling. When you sleep, that is the prime time for your body to recycle all of the excess proteins and amino acids and all the other, because all the damage that you accrue throughout the day, throughout the process of aging. That's why sleep is so important, because sleep is really the main time when the body can recycle and get rid of debris through autophagy. And autophagy is basically when it basically means eating itself, because it's recycling and it's eating all the debris and getting rid of the debris. And intermittent fasting will engage autophagy to a greater degree. And autophagy also works in the brain, because you're going to get a lot of I don't know what they call it in the science. You're going to get a lot of brain debris. So autophagy will act on that brain debris. So if you have a mood disorder, it also stands to reason that it can exacerbate some of those things. But intermittent fasting can be is a highly practical eating schedule for a lot of people, especially if they're busy. And once you get used to it, it's really easy. So that's intermittent fasting. That was really a crash course on intermittent fasting. All right. Next thing I want to talk about, are there such things as healthy and unhealthy foods? This is a question that I get a lot too, because I feel that like to a certain degree, food has become like, nutrition and food has become like almost religious, right? Food and nutrition has almost become part of like people's identities. And depending on who you talk to, it can be kind of a sensitive topic to talk about food. And I've had discussions with many other health professionals, and you'd be surprised at how little health professionals can actually reach a consensus when it comes to certain things. I've met many dietitians and personal trainers who don't believe that we should label a food healthy or unhealthy. But I've also met many health professionals who do label it healthy and unhealthy. For me, I'm kind of in the middle. I like to be politically correct, but I also like, because I understand that I need to work with somebody where they are, both physically and mentally. And if somebody's coming at me with the impression, with the notion that there are healthy and unhealthy foods, well, I don't want to just say, no, there's no such thing as a healthy or an unhealthy food. I don't want to criticize them right away, because then they'll be turned off. So I want to try to get to understand, well, why do you feel that there are healthy and unhealthy foods? Now, for me, I'd like to look at what is the relative health effect of a certain food. Because if you compare broccoli and a Twinkie, I think it's pretty straightforward. Okay, you can ask any person who has sense that broccoli is probably going to be much healthier than a Twinkie, even if they have really no effect visually on your body. So if you eat a cup of broccoli, it's probably not going to affect you visually at all. If you eat one Twinkie, it's probably not going to affect you visually at all. But what's going on inside over time is what we want to understand, and within the context of everything else. When you look at a certain food in and of itself, they might not be healthy or unhealthy. Again, broccoli, if you look at it, okay, so broccoli is very nutritious, but just eating a cup of broccoli one time might not do anything for your health. Twinkie, same thing. Eating a Twinkie one time might not do anything for your health. You might not feel so good. You might feel better, both from a placebo effect and also from a metabolic effect after you eat broccoli. And you might not feel so good after eating Twinkie, because it is fried. It's fried. Oh, what happened? Uh-oh. All right. So when we're thinking about healthy and unhealthy foods, we want to look at, all right, well, how often am I eating healthy versus unhealthy foods? How often? In what amounts? How is it affecting me? How do I feel afterwards? And because what you'll notice is people who tend to be unhealthy tend to eat these foods that are unhealthier more often. And that's how we can kind of conclude, all right, well, it's not that the Twinkie in and of itself is unhealthy. It's that the Twinkie combined with ding dongs and ho-hos and pizza and pasta is, from a commensurate standpoint, is probably unhealthy. So there are some things that we might need to modify. Do we inject a cup of broccoli into there? We could. It's not going to change things overnight. But the idea is that we get the ball rolling and we make small changes here and there until we get to the point where some of these unhealthy foods that create this compounding interest effect become displaced with healthier foods. So now you have momentum going in the other way. So when it comes to healthy versus unhealthy foods, it's relative and it has to be context dependent. So I want to talk about that, because I'm not so sure about labeling foods, although I think it's important to label the behaviors and label the actual dieting paradigm versus looking at a specific food. Okay, so that was more of, I guess you would call that the academic part, where we're going over some of the things, the topics that I feel are important for today's session. And now we're going to jump into some more of the practical stuff. I know I covered the practical stuff a little bit before, but now we're going to go into a little bit more of the practical stuff. We're going to talk about what are some good snacks and things of that nature. But before I jump into this, do we have any questions? Did you get any private questions, Z?
Yeah, somebody asked about cantaloupe as a fruit and like sugar source, and then what does the phrase empty calorie mean?
Okay, great questions. Thank you very much. So cantaloupe is a fruit. It is a sugar source. So is that the question? Is cantaloupe a fruit, and is it a fruit, sugar
Yeah,
source?
like, and then how does it relate to like empty calories? Because that's a phrase that we hear with cantaloupe sometimes.
Yes. Okay. I'm gonna talk about two things. So when it comes to sugars, and I think I want to talk about it's I'm going to talk about something a little bit, and then it's going to round into it. It's going to segue into it. I think it's important to know any carbohydrate food you eat. So there are three main types of carbohydrates. I keep doing this. Three main types of carbohydrates. You have fruits, you have starchy carbohydrates, and you have non-starchy carbohydrates. And all three of these different types of carbohydrates will be broken down and metabolized and turned into three simple sugars. Let me back up a little bit though. So the fruits are things like cantaloupes, melons, raspberries, bananas, oranges, apples, anything that grows on trees and might be sweet. It doesn't have to be sweet. Avocado is a fruit. It's not necessarily sweet. Some parts of the coconut's not sweet. Coconut is a fruit. Cucumber is a fruit. Tomato is a fruit. So you have the fruits, which is a whole category in and of itself. Then you have starchy carbohydrates. Starchy carbohydrates are rice, wheat, pasta, breads, legumes, potatoes, tubers. Those are all starchy carbohydrates. And a lot of those things you'll find that they grow in the ground. Carrots is kind of in between starchy carbohydrates and non-starchy carbohydrates, depending. If you a raw carrot is actually considered a non-starchy carbohydrate, whereas a cooked carrot is considered a starchy carbohydrate, or it's a sugary carbohydrate, starchy carbohydrate, because the cooking process, it softens the carrot. And in essence, it softens the walls of the carrot. So raw carrot is crunchy. The body has a harder time breaking down a raw carrot, or raw vegetables for that matter. But when you cook it, you actually liberate the sugars. It makes your body easier to break down those foods, and as thus they have a different effect on your metabolism. Non-starchy carbohydrates are things like green leafy vegetables, cruciferous vegetables. So raw carrots, definitely a prime example, as I just mentioned. Watercress, broccoli, collard greens, spinach, asparagus, green beans, those are all non-starchy carbohydrates. And the way that you know they're non-starchy carbohydrates, if you look on the nutrition label of broccoli or green beans, they're not going to have that many carbohydrates per serving. Maybe 5 or less is usually. So like a cup of broccoli has, I don't know, 2 grams of sugar. Like 4 grams of carbohydrates, 2 grams of sugar, 2 grams of fiber. And that's how you determine the 3 big categories of carbohydrates. Now, all those carbohydrates will get broken down into 3 simple sugars. The 3 simple sugars, fructose, and fructose gets its name from fruits, because fruits like cantaloupes, almost all the sugar in a fruit is found in the form of fructose. You have glucose. Glucose is the number 1 sugar, or it's the sugar that almost all starchy carbohydrates are broken down into. So potatoes, bread, pasta, rice, those are all get broken down into glucose. And then you have what's called galactose, which is from milk. So milk has its own sugar, lactose, right? Lactose is actually a combination of 2 galactose sugar molecules. I'm not even going to talk about that anymore. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds, but fructose is the primary sugar found in fruits. And fructose is really interesting because if you eat a fruit, your body can't use the fructose found in fruits the same way it can use glucose, because it has to get sent to the liver first. The liver has a special enzyme that breaks down and metabolizes that fructose sugar. So when I talk to people, I try to be careful on how much fruit somebody eats, because a lot of people believe fruits are healthy for you, and they can be. But just like anything else, everything in moderation, there's always too much of a good thing, and it's very context dependent. I've worked with clients who've eaten 2 pounds of fruit per day, and they have no idea why they can't lose weight. Like 2 pounds of fruit, that's a lot of fruit. 2 pounds of fruit. And I'm not saying that everyone does this, but just to put things into perspective, fruits can be problematic depending on how much you eat. Somebody asked a question, but I'm going to answer this one first. So empty calories. The term empty calories came from research when we delineate between what type of energy a particular food product will provide to the body. So you have what's called you have foods that can be energy dense, and you have foods that are nutrient dense. So nutrient dense foods are the nutritious foods, whole foods like chicken, broccoli. Those are nutrient dense foods because a lot of those calories are accounted for being that they either come from protein, they don't have additives, they don't have added sugars or added salt or anything like that. So all those calories are accounted for. Even fruits like cantaloupe is considered a nutrient dense food because the sugars that come in the cantaloupe isn't just free sugar. It's not added sugar, like you're not adding table sugar, but it's naturally occurring sugar that was created in nature. So you have a lot of vitamins and minerals that come attached with that sugar. But empty calories or energy dense foods are foods that have a lot of calories that aren't accounted for by other things. Like foods that have high added sugar are foods that are considered energy dense or considered empty calories. Sugar sweetened beverages like Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper are prime examples. And that is how we delineate between the two. When it comes, now I'm going to talk about one thing. I know this isn't part of the question, but I think it's relevant to how we translate the knowledge of energy dense foods into somebody's dieting program. So you have a thing called discretionary calories. Discretionary calories means, all right, let's say you can eat a certain amount of calories per day in order to maintain your body weight, lose body weight, or gain body weight. You have a certain amount of calories that you should eat per day. Now, every single calorie doesn't have to come from whole foods if you want to lose weight. So let's say, for example, you need to eat 2,000 calories. You don't need to get all 2,000 calories from nutritious foods or energy dense foods. You have what are called discretionary calories, the same way that you have discretionary income. You have a little bit of disposable income that you can use to, pay for your Zoom or pay for a book or pay for personal training or something like that. You have money that you can set aside. The body works the same way. If you can possibly meet 80% of your daily calorie needs from energy or nutrient dense foods, you can have some discretionary calories, anywhere between 10 to 20% of how many calories you should eat per day as discretionary calories. So if your daily calorie intake is 2,000, then you can theoretically have up to 200 calories of discretionary calories where you can have, I wouldn't consider cantaloupe a discretionary calorie. I wouldn't consider that empty calories. Empty calories would be something like a Twinkie. That would be an empty calorie. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that's great. And now we have in the chat about food high in potassium can really help on getting potassium levels at a good level where potassium tablets are not needed, and what foods are high in potassium.
Gotcha. Now, I want to ask this question. So the person who's asking this, Carmen, do you have blood pressure issues and somebody told you that you should bring your potassium levels up? If that's the case,
can you hear? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me now, right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
it's certain medications that I have, and we're going to explore that. But I am on a potassium medicine, 3 times a week. But I would like to really try not to do that. And if it still persists, then it's the medication of some probably that we'll research with my doctor. Okay, so in the meantime, probably not, I guess, but it probably go the way of the medicine. What else can I do to just keep it at a good level and eat more in potassium?
So, Carmi, thank you very much for the question. Are you?
Or maybe it just could help. I just want to help it. Sure. Well, thank you. I'm sorry if I'm talking too much.
No. I'm talking too much, if anything, even though I'm the presenter.
No.
I'm definitely talking a lot. Are you on a potassium restricted diet? Like, do you have a kidney issue?
No, I do have a problem.
Okay. So
I have myeloma. Okay, it's cancer, blood cancer. I don't know if that's what it is, and it's causing problems here and there. Even with heartburn, which I had to take a heartburn medicine because it was too much, but I'm doing that very sparingly. And this new medicine's going to cease. So.
Gotcha. Now,
I just want to try very hard, if I can, to keep it at a good level. naturally. So the doctor wouldn't mind that. He always says, eat foods high in potassium.
What foods are you eating right now, if any, that are high in potassium or that you
Kiwi, potatoes. Cantaloupe is supposed to be high in potassium, right? Cantaloupe, maybe watermelon.
okay?
What other foods? I researched it, but I do eat spinach, so that might not. So I'm not really varying my diet high in potassium. Really, right? I mean, that's really basically what I know that's high in potassium that I eat. I did research. What else is it? Beans, right? Beets.
Mhm.
Okay. Lentils.
Lentils can be good.
I mean, lentils.
Bananas can be good.
But that's about it. Oh,
Yep,
she
so
put
what-
eggplant. Did she put eggplant? Did someone put
Yeah,
eggplant?
eggplant is there. The potato is probably from a per gram perspective, the potato probably has the most amount of potassium. I mean, banana is good
They
too.
do.
Yes.
Bananas, of course. I eat bananas. Oh, that's definite. That's a definite.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, thank you. Thank you very much. I
Yes.
appreciate whatever
Yeah. Well,
else you do.
let's
Thank
follow
you.
let's follow up, and I can give you a little bit more information on that. But I think we got some good answers from Liz and Marianne. So thank you very much. The bananas, eggplant.
Yes. What
the
else did
potato.
Marianne say?
Marianne said bananas and eggplant, and
I
Liz
didn't-
Liz Caruso said
Okay.
bananas. So we've got some interaction going here. So I thank the panelists. It's great.
Thank you. Okay.
No, of
Thank
course.
you.
Thank you,
David.
everyone. All right.
I
Okay.
appreciate it.
No, of course. Okay. Next one. Let's talk about now who snacks.
Okie dokie.
Who can't give up snacking, and who wants to know some good snack options?
Oh,
I
that's
can't give
hard.
up snacking. Nope.
Yep, that's
I need
hard.
a snack.
All right. So that the obvious snacking issue is that a lot of people when they snack, they generally snack on foods that are energy dense, right? High in both fats and carbohydrates, right? And that can be problematic, right? Because as we mentioned earlier, foods that are high in sugars, they tend to increase your blood sugar. Foods that are high in sugar and carbohydrates then tend to increase your blood sugar. The increase in blood sugar will affect your serotonin and dopamine levels. When it increases your serotonin and dopamine levels, the concomitant decrease, the compensatory decrease in serotonin and dopamine will have you craving carbohydrates again, which is why some people have this recurring sweet tooth, or they feel like they can't get off this roller coaster of sugar cravings. So that's why, from a snacking perspective, if you snack on foods that are high in carbohydrates, it can be problematic. But that's not to say snacking in and of itself is evil or something that you should cut out. There are other snack options that are really helpful. But the problem is just like anything else. If you want to eat healthy or if you want to eat nutritious foods, it takes preparation. And some of the foods that might be more nutritious and geared towards snacking might not taste very good. This might sound really, really weird, but my number one snack recommendation for people, and again, I would say that this is a minority of people are actually open to this recommendation, but the people who are open to this recommendation and do it, they see very good results. Pork rinds. If people don't know what pork rinds are, it's basically pork skin, right? Fried pork skin. A normal 99-cent bag of pork rinds has like 15 grams of fat, but almost 30 grams of protein and no sugar. But it's not for everybody. Other options can be hard-boiled egg. It can be like peppers and almond butter, peppers and peanut butter. We can also do beef jerky is a common snack option, but I'm not a huge fan of beef jerky because a lot of beef jerky has added sugar. There's actually a product called biltong. If anyone is familiar with biltong, it is a slow age, slow dry process that is really common and popular in South Africa, and it's made from beef sirloin. The typical serving, a 2-ounce serving of biltong has like 3 grams of fat and like 30 grams of protein because it's dehydrated, it takes all the water out of the beef, so it's almost all protein. So for anyone who is struggling with protein, getting protein in, they like snacking, they don't mind having a chewy, meaty snack, and they're okay with eating beef, biltong can be a fantastic option. So biltong, pork rinds, like peppers and a peanut butter, peppers and almond butter, those can be good snacks too. Again, I'm not a huge fan of snacks that are high in sugar and carbohydrates because it's just going to put you on that carbohydrate sugar roller coaster. And as soon as that snack is over, you're probably going to be craving sugar again in the next couple of hours. And hard-boiled eggs can be good too. Or deli meats can be good too. Deli meats and like lettuce wraps, they can all be very good. But again, one thing that you notice is that when it comes to nutritious snacks, if you want to make measurable impacts on your health using healthy, nutritious snacks, some preparation is involved and some modification of your taste buds might be involved too. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that if you continue snacking on foods that are high in fats and carbohydrates that you're not going to lose weight. I've worked with people who just cannot give up Pirate's Booty. They love eating a bag of Pirate's Booty as a snack. And it's just like, is there any way that you can help me lose weight without me giving up Pirate's Booty? And we do. We figure out a way because we got to cut out from other places. Maybe we might look at the meals, how many carbohydrates, and can we cut out some carbohydrates from your dinner to compensate and take into consideration the carbohydrates that you're going to have from the Pirate's Booty as a snack. So it's always about making shifts and recommendations. Hopefully that was good enough from the snack perspective.
David?
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned hard-boiled eggs.
Yes.
I know some people eat the white and some people eat the yolk.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget which is the healthier part of the egg, the white or the yolk. I think it's the white, if I'm not mistaken.
So the white is okay. The white. Thank you very much for the question, Liz. The white is healthy in the sense that it doesn't have fats. A lot of people believe that fat is not necessarily the fat, right? It's the cholesterol that's found in the egg, right? The National Institute of Health recommends that a normal person should have less than 300 milligrams of cholesterol per day. One egg has almost that. Like you eat one egg, and you already met your NIH, the National Institute of Health cholesterol recommendation. But then you have other foods that contain cholesterol, like meats contain cholesterol. So if you have one egg, you're probably not going to have any meat throughout the rest of the day because you're going to go over your cholesterol recommendation. But what is not so clear is there's a lot of research, and this research has been dating back 20 years, at least 20 years, showing that cholesterol is not actually a problem for a vast majority of people. Even people who have cholesterol problems as a result of being unhealthy. Let's say somebody is unhealthy, they've been eating very poorly throughout their life, and because as a result, their cholesterol levels are up. There's no research showing that most people who eat egg yolks will suffer from the negative consequences of eating more cholesterol. A lot of times people who have cholesterol problems, they usually eat foods that are too high in sugar and carbohydrates and saturated fats. So if somebody can figure out a way to improve those two, then eating foods that are high in cholesterol, not really much of a problem. Now, with that caveat out of the way, what I want to look at is, does somebody have a family history of cholesterol problems called hypercholesterolemia? If somebody doesn't have hypercholesterolemia, then eating an egg yolk is completely fine. And research has shown that you can even eat a normal, and they've done research on this, and at least the most practical way that they can do research on egg yolks, eating 2 egg yolks every single day. So eating 10 egg yolks per week has been shown to have no negative effects on vast majority of people. So from a health perspective, eating the whole egg is okay. The egg yolk might not necessarily be any healthier, or the egg white might not be necessarily any healthier than eating the egg yolk if somebody is healthy. So in one egg, you have 6 grams of protein in one whole egg. If you take out the egg yolk, you're going to have 3 grams of protein, but that's basically it. All of the nutrients, like the choline, the B vitamins, they're all in the egg yolk. So if we can make the argument, like what's actually healthier, if you look at it from a nutrient perspective, the egg yolk is healthier than the egg white. I don't know if that made sense.
Good to know. Thank you.
All right. I know that was a really long answer for such a simple question. I just
Because sometimes I'll eat it whole, and then sometimes like I'll mash it up and like make like a little egg salad in a sense.
Mhm.
So, but good to know. Thank you.
so the egg salad now here's the thing. The egg salad, are you mixing it with mayonnaise?
Very light, not
Okay.
too much.
Okay. But if you're just asking me a question,
Like the light mayo, but I don't put a lot of it though.
gotcha. All right. Well, I know that you were just asking me about the egg, so I was just curious.
Yeah. Thank you.
Gotcha. So yeah, the egg yolk. The egg yolk is good for people who are fine. They don't have a family history of hypercholesterolemia. They don't have out of control blood sugar. Then I think they'll be fine. Mary Ann, you raised your hand. Hello. Oh wait, hold on. You want to unmute? Mary Ann, you're muted. We can't. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Better.
Yep.
So Carmela, you still on the line? Or is she off?
Carmi,
Carmi,
you
are
hear
you
me?
still on?
she's still here.
Yes.
Can you hear me, guys?
Lovely. Yes, can you
I
hear
hear you
me?
now.
Okay, so
Yes.
here's the suggestion. So if you're fighting, everybody that pitched in tonight gave you some really great
Yes.
suggestions. I would
Yes.
suggest you go on Memorial Sloan Kettering's website. That
Yes,
is a
okay.
hospital devoted to cancer care.
Yes,
have-
yes, yes,
They have every resource to help you understand
yes.
what your medication is and how, because basically your medication is gonna eat any potassium in your body.
Mhm.
Yes, yes,
So-
I know. It's mostly but it's
So-
more. I think it might be more my high blood pressure medicine because it's a diuretic, a half diuretic and half this. But yes,
Yeah.
I know that this medication. I
they-
mean, is the worst. Unfortunately, if it's not one thing to do. I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
No, it's just a quick question. Have they
Yes.
recommended a potassium pill for you?
Yes, for now, because because
Okay.
I do also, because of the situation I also do an injection, which now I've done since 16 weeks, that stops. That probably, they can want to keep my level good for that, especially for that. So they're giving me the potassium
Right.
3 times a
Okay,
week.
good.
So, but
So they
yeah,
give it to you.
yeah,
I
I
know
do
a
go
lot
on
of
the
us don't
website.
like. Yeah, I know a lot of us don't like medications, but in your case,
Oh,
don't
please.
decline.
Yeah,
Your
I
body
know.
needs it, so
I
use it.
know. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you for your help. I appreciate it. Really, very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank
Anytime.
you.
Memorial Sloan Kettering is like free research, so they've done all the homework.
Yes, thank
Usually
you.
people
And
that are
I'm
fighting.
also, yes.
No, I mean, like normally people that are fighting some challenges also have challenges that were there before they ever got diagnosed. So
Right,
kind of the
right.
question and they've done all that leg work for you. If you're on
Yes,
glipizide, if you're on high blood pressure medication,
yes.
how are the new medications going to affect you?
Yes, which of course,
So they've done it all
my
for you. So
medication.
don't be.
Thank you,
If
Mary.
you
Yes, and
haven't looked that up, go for it.
Yes, I will. I'm also on the multiple myeloma has many websites and the Lymphoma Society. So thank
they're
you.
great.
I keep doing it. Thank you so much. I just feeling that I wish I could get those foods to do it. Maybe they will
Yeah.
as soon as we find out or
Yeah.
I lessen my medication. Thank you, guys. I don't want to take up the whole
No, that's what the whole point
program.
of this is.
Thanks,
Are you kidding?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Well,
you.
here
Thank you,
for it.
guys. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right.
Okey-dokey.
So we're at 8:12 right now. I don't know if we want to wrap up or if other people have questions. Let's see here.
Okay, just to lighten the mood off of snacking, you guys have to see
It was
this. There's
snacking. We love
literally
snacking.
a cat on top of the car.
What's that? What is that?
There's literally a cat on top of the car. Can you see it?
The lighting is a little
Yeah.
bit weird, but
It's really funny.
cat on top of a car. Cats will go on top.
Literally
Of
chilling on top of the car. You see the people cat?
Oh, I see the white cat. Cat is sleeping?
He's like sacked out on the car. It's very funny.
Oh my gosh.
You hungry, cat?
Animals.
Yeah, it's really cute.
Animals.
Yeah, City Island,
Feed the cat some beef jerky.
200%.
All right. Okay. I mean, I think we covered pretty much everything.
David, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So how does one who works a 9 to 5 get in those, you said 3 to 4 meals? Like how do you space it out during the day?
Mm.
Are you having problems getting your meals in through the day?
Yeah, sometimes like if I'm stressed out at work and I just, just work it through lunch, and that's like, it gets crazy sometimes. So how does one work through that? Like, how do you do that?
Are there any meals that you have complete control over? Like you can hit those meals at least 80% of the time, like breakfast, dinner.
But yeah, breakfast and dinner. Yep. Just what
Okay.
you just said. Yeah.
So lunch is generally the problematic one.
Yes.
And when it's problematic, is it because sometimes you don't eat at all, or you don't eat the right foods, or a combination of both?
Sometimes I don't eat at all, and then I come straight home and I eat, and it's like late lunch, early dinner. And then other times I don't eat properly, so I'll get like a protein shake, and then I'll use that as my lunch. So
Now, I don't. This might be a little bit more detailed, but when you have a protein shake versus not eating, is it generally better for you, or?
yeah, the protein shake, it holds me off. I may need like a snack a couple hours later before I head on home. But it's definitely better instead of having nothing, just having this protein shake.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's a shake that I bought from the store. So
Gotcha. Is there a particular brand you like?
I've been drinking Boat House. They have a protein based protein shake.
Gotcha. So for lunch, the concern here is sometimes you don't eat, and then if you do eat, and sometimes you don't get a chance to eat a nutritious meal, you turn to a protein shake.
Correct. Yes.
Gotcha. Right. When you do eat a nutritious meal, what do you normally eat, and how often can you get that in?
Well, for like breakfast, I usually do 2 eggs, toast, almond milk. That will be in the morning. And then for dinner, it would be like, for example, tonight I had like pasta. Sometimes I may throw in ground turkey with the sauce or chicken on the side.
Gotcha. And then for lunch, what would be a nutritious meal for you for lunch?
A turkey burger and French fries.
Yeah, turkey burger and French fries. Now, you make that yourself or you buy it?
No, that would be made at work. We have a cafeteria at work.
Okay, cool. And then how often would you have something like that?
Maybe 2 times out of the week, 2 or 3 times. So.
And then how on average, how often do you not eat anything?
Maybe once, max twice a week that would happen where I don't eat lunch.
Gotcha. Okay. So with all things being equal, no change. If you did the protein shake, how practical would it be for you to maybe have, I don't know, a small handful? Do you do nuts? A small handful of nuts and a fruit in addition?
Yeah, I do. Like my snacking consists of like grapes or cherries or blueberries. Nuts would be great. I have bought like the Ocean Spray. Like Ocean Spray has these set packs where they have nuts and dried fruit inside of it. So I do snack on those while I'm at work, working on reports. So that's what I do. Those do hold me off as well.
What about if you combine the nuts and the fruits with the protein shake? So rather than snacking, you're having them all together so that it resembles more of a meal.
Oh, I didn't. think about that.
Because
Yeah, because
are you interested in getting healthier? You're interested in losing weight, a little bit of both?
more getting healthier
Okay.
instead of, losing. I could lose a little bit of weight, but just more being healthier.
Why don't we try that then, Sumi? Why don't we try combining the meals so that you're not snacking throughout the day and see if that, at the very least, it would help you focus on your work more rather than you having to snack.
All right, David, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, small handful, and if the handful visual doesn't suffice, if you have a measuring cup, a quarter cup of nuts is considered a serving, and a quarter cup of nuts generally has about 16 grams of fat.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you, David.
Sure. Hope that answers your question. Okay.
I think this has been great, David. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about food and answering all our questions. Do you want to give everybody your website and your email?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. I know we went a little bit over, but I hope you found the information that I shared with you valuable and insightful. Hopefully it helps you in a certain way, and hopefully the time that you spent with me was worthwhile. So I do appreciate it. My website is www.strongbylee.com. That's my website. If you want to reach out to me personally, my email is david@strongbylee.com. Mariette, thank you. Thank you very much for being my PIC, my partner in crime. So it's david@strongbylee.com. If somebody wants to message me, again, you can message me and we can go back and forth, and I can even extend a free personalized phone call for you, where we just kind of hop on the phone or a Zoom call, maybe for 20-30 minutes, kind of the same way that Carmi and Sumi and I discussed their situation. We can talk about your situation, see if there's any way that I can help you. Free of charge, no strings attached, just want to help you out. And as a thank you for coming here and spending your time with me.
Wonderful. And visit us on the line at www.ypl.org. That's Yonkers Public Library website for more information and fun programs. So good night, everybody, and we hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you. Just rubbing my top knot for good luck.
Thank you, David.
Bye, thank you.
All right, see you next time. Bye-bye.